Mary Harrington is doing some more research for us, and she will probably be presenting to the board at a workshop or whatever, just to get some more clarification on things, and we'll bring it back to vote if appropriate after such type of workshop presentation. So that's why.
Great. From the people that are here to speak on it.
Well, you don't know that they're here to speak on that. So before I get going, okay, the people that did come in a little bit later, this opened to the public to speak. Is there anybody that did not sign the sheet that intends to speak? Oh, my friend from Penfield.
You know it.
All right. I know it's Brenda.
Brenda, yeah, good job.
Lincoln?
Yep. Now I feel like I'm famous.
Okay, anybody else? All right. Well, the first person on the list is Marianne Randall, or is it? Randall, okay.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
My name is Marianne Randall. I am strongly in favor of registering and taking the pledge to become a climate smart community. I am glad that the board has taken the action of considering this important step towards responsible community care. I attended my first town board meeting 2 weeks ago, and I found it very interesting. There were several people who protested the CSC, or the Climate Smart Community Pledge, due to concerns of other governmental agencies attempting to take over the running of our town board and town decision making. I was curious about these fears, so I took the deep dive into the CSC document. Hours later, I especially was curious about the land use portion because we live in the woods and have town creeks running through our property. I found nothing that said my personal property land use would be restricted. I realized that I already must follow town guidelines for waterway protection of Shipbuilders Creek, and I'm happy to comply because the beauty and the health of that creek is important to all of us and to the fish and the wildlife. The CSC document is an excellent guideline for how we can work as a town board and a community to make energy-saving, cost-saving, and environmentally sound decisions. So many of the recommendations are ones that we try to implement as responsible parents and citizens. In our home, we recycle, we compost, we do not use chemicals on our land. We have converted to LED lights, reducing our RG&E bill. We have reduced our gas usage, converting to battery-powered yard tools and cars when possible. We have considered solar and heat pumps and pledged to consider energy-efficient appliances and HVAC when those needs arise. I understand people's concern about the cost of these actions. I am not suggesting anyone, including the town, spend money frivolously or irresponsibly, or that we judge each other on one's ability to convert to energy-saving measures. Rather, that we all consider the impact of our decisions on our town, our land, and the lives of our children, and do our best to make climate-smart decisions where we can. Many actions recommended by this CSC program would actually save the town money and give access to grants. As a taxpayer, I am always in favor of smart financial decisions. The town has a responsibility and an opportunity to be role models on this front. I hope that you will vote to take the challenge and that the residents of Webster will be proud of our climate smart community status. Thank you.
Thank you, Marianne. And she is a tough act to follow because Marianne was on that podium for 2 minutes and 38 seconds. That is efficient and succinct and to the point.
Thank you.
Fantastic. Next up is Rebecca Collins.
Can you hear me? Okay, I'm Rebecca Collins, and I do realize that this item has been tabled, but I am here to speak in favor of the town taking the pledge to become a climate smart community, also known as CSC. I'd like to thank Mary and the other department heads for the informative and thorough presentation given at the town board meeting on April 27th, or town board workshop on April 27th. And I'd also like to thank the board for initially agreeing to add the resolution to the town board agenda for that following board meeting, which was May 4th. I actually came here on May 4th to show my support, but by the time I arrived at 7:25, the sign-up sheet was gone and the room was packed. Needless to say, I was blindsided by the opposition to this resolution. I listened to concerns from fellow residents about fears of government overreach and control, but I have a different perspective. I feel we are fortunate to live in a state where programs such as the Climate Smart Communities and Clean Energy Communities are available. These programs provide incentives, they provide rebates and grants as a way to offset costs associated with implementing actions to help us become more sustainable communities. From the presentation delivered by Mary at the April 27th workshop, we learned that registering to take a pledge to become a climate smart community requires no additional stress on the town workforce. There are, however, potential financial benefits to doing so. In some state grant programs, communities that have taken the CSC pledge get scored higher. This means if Webster registers, it improves our grant scoring, and we have a higher chance of receiving funding through these state grant programs. Webster is currently involved in a number of projects that could qualify for this type of funding, with more likely to come. Contrary to statements made at previous board meetings, communities involved in the Climate Smart Communities and Clean Energy Communities programs have definitely not been destroyed. They have greatly benefited. I know the board was sent a spreadsheet containing data of grant money earned by different local communities. I can help arrange to have representatives from some of these communities, including Canandaigua, Penfield, and the village of Lima, to actually come here and speak to the board, describing the financial benefits they have received by being part of these programs. So please let me know if you would like me to coordinate this. So in closing, I believe that the responsible action is for the board to put this resolution back on the agenda and pledge to become a climate smart community in order to take advantage of these incentives. Thank you.
Thank you, Rebecca. Marianne, she beat you. 2 minutes and 27 seconds, but I might have started it late. You were close.
We're not confused.
Next up is Lori Reynolds.
Good evening. I'm Chair of the Webster Citizen Action League, and I'm representing us tonight. I have 2 things. Mr. Flaherty, can you answer me why there is no parking out here on a board meeting night? Can this be taken care of, with the, the playground over here? Or the
Well,
field?
usually I run and say with the 5 minutes open to the public, it's you can say anything you want, but we don't answer questions. But this one I'm going to answer because it's funny. This is the courthouse. There's a jury trial tonight, and they're picking the jury. So, unfortunately, Ms. Reynolds, no, I can't change that. It's one of those things that tonight, which in 3.5 years as supervisor, it's never happened. But this is the realities of us being in the courthouse, that we were made aware that they have a jury trial. We're not going to change our board meeting, so that's my answer.
Okay, because I didn't know whether it was because of the park, whether people are parking.
Well, now you know
here.
what the reason is, Ms. Reynolds, so.
Okay, thank you,
And
Mr.
by the way,
Flaherty.
keep going.
Okay, my name is Lori Reynolds. I'm Chair of the Webster Citizen Action League. The Webster Citizen Action League has for almost 10 years advocated for Webster residents. The proposal to approve the Climate Smart Community resolution leaves too many unanswered questions. What will be the short and long-term impacts on our community? Will this involve a quicker change away from natural gas or other fossil fuels? What's the cost going to be for the town residents? Has any of this been looked into? Our state government has shown it does not care about upstate New York. Actually, Albany has made sure to make our lives in upstate as difficult as possible. Approving this resolution seems like another way to add to our burdens. The town board should really consider carefully how adopting this resolution could hurt our town residents. Perhaps there might be a day when approving a climate change resolution might be appropriate. It does not seem like this is the right time to make this commitment to an out-of-touch state government. As an advocate for Webster residents, Webster Citizens Action League opposes the signing of the Climate Smart Community Resolution by the Webster Town Supervisor and Board. Thank you.
Now, Mary Ann and Rebecca, even with me answering Lori's question, she was at 2 minutes and 37 seconds, so really her time was probably 30 seconds less.
I just hope this doesn't influence your vote.
Name that two people under 2 minutes. Well, Jen Fonseca's next. I'm a betting man.
So I'm gonna take
It won't be
each
under
of their
2
2.5 minutes and I'm gonna keep it well. And I've got two helpers that are gonna come up. One that has some questions, you can stand right there.
Okay,
Come on up. So as you know, my name's Jen Fonseca.
All right, Jen, you're fine.
You
Props
think-
and all.
About this pledge, you think that you're only taking a pledge. But tonight, I want to read the statements to you directly from the resolution. Does anybody on the board need the resolution in hand? Do you have it in front of you?
I do.
You do. Nobody else has the resolution? David, can you do me a favor? The resolutions are sitting there on the chair. If you could pass one out to each board member, that's fine. So, as a teacher, I know there's multiple ways of learning. Some is through listening, some is through visual, some is tactile, etc. So I would like you to be able to use all of your senses tonight in order to understand what's in this pledge. And as I'm speaking and reading out each of these statements, there are some questions I want you to contemplate, not just as I'm reading, but afterwards and prior to voting on this. Question number one. As an elected Webster Town Board member representing all the residents of Webster, do you agree that we believe in these statements? Because you're representing the residents of Webster. You're not representing yourself and your own intentions. But you do have that in the back of your mind. So you're doing both of those things. Do you have examples from, especially around the state, about that these whereas statements are actually true? How might those in authority at the New York State level, along with its agencies, either modify or alter the requirements of those taking the pledge? Because your name is going to be on this pledge. If it is as simple as taking a pledge to gain better access to grants, which is a binding promise, my definitions, lady, a pledge is a binding promise, according to Webster Merriam Dictionary. Why would they make New York towns commit to these belief statements and complete an online application? Do you even know what's in this application yet? Or you haven't gotten that far because you haven't logged in yet? I'm not sure. I don't think you have because you haven't taken the pledge. So let's go over some of these statements. Number one, I want you to refer to question number one as you're thinking about this. The town of Webster believes that climate change poses a real and increasing threat to our local and global environments and is primarily due to the burning of fossil fuels. Do we really believe that? Is that true? It's our other definition. Believe, no, front page, believe, to accept as true or real. Is that true?
You guys need to get up next.
Yeah, get over here.
We can't
You
get
need
you
to
on
be
the
here.
film.
Is
People
this
at home
true?
gotta see this. This
Believe.
is the most creative I've seen.
Listen, let me, we only got 5 minutes.
That's right, I'll give it 10 extra seconds because I
Number
said.
two,
You need to get up there.
number two is question you.
Up
Do you
next to
have
it.
examples from other programs across New York State to make this true? Whereas the effects of climate change will endanger our infrastructure, economy, and livelihoods, harm our farms, orchards, and ecological communities, including native fish and wildlife populations, spread invasive species and exotic diseases, reduce drinking water supplies and recreational opportunities, and pose health threats to our citizens. is that, do we have examples? Do we totally believe that is true? Number 3, whereas we believe, and you're going to refer back to question number 2, we believe that our response to climate change provides us with an unprecedented opportunity to save money, to build livable, energy-independent, and secure communities, vibrant innovation economies, healthy and safe schools, and resilient infrastructures. Do we believe that 100%? Is that true?
I'm gonna do something different here.
Do we have examples?
I'm gonna give you 5:30, because I've said, you're at
Whereas
4:20,
we
you're at
believe
number 3,
the
so you're gonna run out on 10.
Do we believe the scale of greenhouse gas emissions reductions required for climate stabilization will require sustained and substantial efforts? Refer back to question 1. Do we all believe that's true? And number 5, refer to question 3. We believe that even if emissions were dramatically reduced today, communities would still be required to adapt to effects of climate change for decades to come. This is very dangerous because the next 10 points, the statements, you must adopt those if you sign this pledge. You are saying you are building a climate smart community. Inventory emissions, set goals, plan for climate action, decrease energy use, shift to clean renewable energy, use climate smart materials management, and number 6, implement climate smart land use. This is the most dangerous. Turn the page, because Cornell law says what a pledge is in legalese, which is a type of security interest in which a lender takes
You are now at 5 minutes and 30 seconds.
personal property as security of an obligation. This is in the application.
I'm gonna do you a favor. Who's got numbers 5 through 10? Do you have it on the back of yours?
No,
You don't have
not in
5 through
there.
10?
I am
Okay.
gonna move on.
Well, you're done.
I am.
You are. Okay, thank you, Jen.
Vote
And
no.
I want to thank you
I
very
need
much
3
for
no's, but I would prefer 5.
Susan, unless you got some tapped answers to...
I can tap dance,
That's a tough
actually.
act to follow.
Even as an adult, I can tap dance. I'm gonna be very brief, though. I won't need near the 5 minutes. I was happy she went over a little bit. First, I want to thank you for letting us come speak. It's a freedom we still have in America, and I respect the rights of differing opinions, because that's what America is freaking all about. I also want to say this. We start every meeting at the town board saying a pledge of allegiance to that beautiful red, white, and blue flag. Every single meeting. And you know, I used to say it and I felt so good, so proud, so safe, so free. And you know what? Of late, I don't feel as safe, I don't feel as free. And my pride in being American is starting to shift a little bit, because I don't like the direction this country's going. It scares the hell out of me. I limit how much news I watch. Now, I believe, this is my belief, this climate control stuff, along with the RG&E smart meters, it's all about government control. Webster, where life is worth living. Yes, I believe that. I love living in Webster. Elected officials, we want to govern us and represent us. This climate control program is just another piece of the little puzzle for state and higher up politicians to get you to be their little puppets, to dangle a carrot, get you to do what they want so that they can govern and control us, and you lose a lot of that ability. It's a piece of the puzzle that is slowly moving our beautiful country towards socialism.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I don't think what I have to say tonight will probably make any difference in how you vote. Maybe your hands are tied, as so many politicians nowadays claim. You gotta have the balls to stand up for constituents. And when you say Pledge of Allegiance to that beautiful red, white, and blue, who are you pledging allegiance to? Who do you want to govern? Who do you want to rule? What do you believe in for this country? When you go to sleep at night and when you vote, you think about when you pledge allegiance to that flag. I pray the day never comes when they take that flag away from us, because I'm scared to God that's going to be the next thing they take away in our freedoms.
Well, I'm going to rephrase it. Michelle Anderson,
Yes.
that's a tough act to follow. I don't think
Well-
you,
No, she is a tough act.
that's a tough act to follow.
That was terrific. I agree.
Are you going up there?
Well, yes, but I have to ask you, at the last meeting I had to.
Nobody can hear you, by the way,
I'm
so
so
that's why you
sorry.
should go up and.
Yep, we'll do
You
the
know.
one credit.
All
Okay.
right?
Yes.
So Michelle Anderson is next. And you might at home recognize her face because she was one of the prop holders for Jen Fonseca. Do a double duty tonight.
So I have to ask you a question. At the last meeting, because I was under the line, you said I got 2 extra minutes. I'm not saying I'm gonna use them, but if I should, do I have your permission to do
Michelle,
that? Yes?
and I hope you appreciate this, no.
Well, I don't
Because,
appreciate
you know,
it, but you have
As
to be a
soon
man
as
of your
I give
word.
that favor to you, it'll widespread over the next couple of years where everybody wants that extra 2 minutes. And,
I'll remember
you
that.
know, so,
It's okay.
I don't remember.
All right, no problem. We're good.
You're
So-
at 31 seconds in.
Am I really? Okay, well, here we go, folks. I have to say, and I've never really been sworn into office for anything, but I'm assuming, and I hope I'm assuming correctly, that you all put your hand on a Bible and swore to represent the constituents who elected you to office. That's a big assumption. And in doing so, I am hoping that you've had enough time to read the application for this Smart Communities Plan, and if you haven't, well, I'm going to read some of it for you. On page 12, under the heading Ineligible Expenses. Now, this is absurd, but anyway, we need to hear this. The following expenses are not eligible as match for reimbursement under the Smart Communities Plan. Costs for purchase of zero-emission vehicles and/or installation of electric vehicle service, equipment, or other charging or clean vehicle fueling infrastructure. If interested in zero-emission vehicles, charging infrastructure, or hydrogen fuel cell filling station grant opportunities, please see Grantscaping. The cost for the installation of equipment for power sector-related GHG emission reductions, such as solar panels, heat pumps, etc., unless they are installed in low-income public housing. Generators, unless part of a larger adaptation project and powered by means other than fossil fuel. Real property, land acquired prior to award and contract start date, and lands protected through state or federal easements are not eligible for grant funding. Let's see, we'll go down, cut through that, and we'll go to page 14 under the title Ownership. Pursuant to ECL 5415153, all infrastructure and project components funded through the CSC grant program must be owned by the contractor grantee and cannot be transferred to another entity for the duration of the service life of such infrastructure and/or project components through a climate change mitigation easement, CCME. Further discussed on page 16 of this RFA, and the infrastructure and project components may be placed on real property not owned by the municipality. And the way I'm interpreting this is a really interesting way to say eminent domain. Real property, land in fee simple, acquired, developed, improved, restored, or rehabilitated by a municipality with funds made available pursuant to this program shall not be sold or disposed of or used for any other than climate change mitigation and adaptation purposes without the expressed authority of an act of the New York State Legislature, there we go again, which shall provide for the substitution of other lands of equal environmental and fair market value and reasonably equivalent usefulness and location to those to be discontinued, sold, or disposed of, and such other requirements as shall be approved by the Commissioner. So now we come to page 34. And on page 34, it states, it's the third paragraph down, upon notification from the municipality that the project is complete, the DEC will determine if the project is operating in accordance with applicable laws and regulations pursuant to 6 NY-CRR subsection 492.3.5D. A final project summary report must be submitted no later than 60 days after the end of the contract period and be approved by DEC prior to the release of the final contract reimbursement. The final report must report on all aspects of the program, include photographs and copies of media promotion, detail how grant funds were utilized in achieving the goals set forth in the work plan, summarize the obstacles experienced and how they were overcome, and include monitoring and metrics data pertaining to the project's GHG emissions reduction, risk reduction, or other appropriate metrics as defined in the contract work plan. And on page 35, under the heading Protest Procedure. Now, the DEC is running this show, according to this. However, it says the DEC does not have a formal protest procedure.
You just hit 5 minutes.
Okay, just by the grace of God, give me 2 more seconds.
No?
Seconds.
You got 30.
All right, who else
Do
wants to
it.
pick
Go.
this up?
Go.
Go.
No, I'm not gonna break
You got
the
30
rules.
seconds.
Okay,
But
thank you.
I would ask that the board please vote no.
Okay.
This is absurd. And I would also ask that you read this.
Thank you.
Yep.
All right, next up is Eileen Warren.
So, nice job.
Hello. I'd like you to know I'm strongly opposed to this climate, smart climate. And as far as the grants you're going to get for doing this, I've lived through that already in a medical office where the state offered us a grant of $200,000 to convert to EMRs. It took 4 years to get even $1,000 out of that grant. But that's jumping through hoops and selling your soul to the devil to get that money. So don't think it's going to be easy to get your grants, because it's not going to be. They will fight you on everything. Secondly, I want to know why this isn't a town-wide vote. Why do you 7 people get to make this determination
Good question.
on 1, 2, 3, 4?
Only 5
They
voters.
don't.
Well, whatever. Why do you guys get to do this instead of having a town-wide vote publicized on something as important as a smart climate?
They need to know.
If you'd like to. Are you sad?
I'm done.
Okay.
Don't think you're gonna get that money from the government.
The only matters that can be put up for a referendum are those that are permitted by law. We are a representative democracy. You vote for your representatives, they enact the laws. There are a certain number of matters, some of which are binding. Occasionally they are laws that the voters vote on, but in any event, that's why furthermore, this is not a statute, this is not a law, this is something different. It's basically a matter of policy. So this is not something that would be appropriately, either by statute or by any other means, before the vote.
Thanks,
Well,
Rose. Brett Cummings is next.
Pledge.
Thank you very much for the time tonight. First, I'd like to correct my statement in my last meeting where I said if anyone had worked in a manufacturing plant and try to power it by renewable energy, I said they use gigawatts of power. That's not exactly correct. It didn't sound right to me. So I spoke to some folks in the natural gas industry who supply energy, and they said it's about 14,000 kilowatts per day for an average large plant. Now that depends on what you make, all that kinds of stuff. But that turns out to be 5 gigawatts a year. So I was in the right ballpark, wrong time frame. Just to put it in perspective, some of the biggest windmills, if that's the type we would choose, it would take 1 to 2 windmills per large factory to power that factory. Just, again, to put it in perspective. And that doesn't tell you when you will have the power. It's just, that's what the total output would be. So real quick, I looked at why would we want to become a CSC certified community? And this is from their website. What it says is you will get better scores on your grant applications. I won't rehash how it takes to get grants. But it doesn't guarantee you anything. It just puts us potentially ahead of someone else who hasn't done it. That's really all it does. It gives us state level recognition. Big deal. Streamlined access to resources, that's a good thing. Networking with peers, not a bad thing. Cost savings, and I won't go through them all. I am for the CSC concept. I am not for signing up for it. They have a beautiful manual. And Mary, when you go through this, several of us who's gone through this, we ought to give you what we found because it's daunting, the number of websites to look at. But they have a great manual. That one page that Jen showed you, it's over 220 pages of detail, okay? But it tells you every single step, how to do it. I mean, it's a great manual, whomever put it together. It's my opinion that while it says it's voluntary, we have a voluntary army in this country. But once you sign up, it ain't voluntary anymore. And that's exactly how I see this. I might be wrong, but I think we take the best of what they've put out there, which is their manual, and as a town, we say what fits us. I mean, there are people here that are saying that, you know, we ought to do it for the next generation. I absolutely agree. Absolutely agree. It's just I don't want them telling me what to do. I came out of the automotive industry where quality requirements came out in the 80s. They were voluntary. They ain't voluntary. And when they say it doesn't cost you anything, just in the very first thing, how much time left on? Just in the very first thing.
You're doing great.
It says you have to create a task force. So someone said it's not going to add to your workload. You guys are the task force unless you get volunteers, which is fine. You have to appoint a climate coordinator. This is going to be a full-time job when you see what these 250 pages outline for us to do. It is a huge undertaking, and to think it's not going to cost us anything is ridiculous. It's ridiculous. So I will summarize saying that I just don't want the state government micromanaging us. I think we ought to use as a town their manual and implement it as best fits Webster. And I think all of us are pretty concerned or want to do what we can for the climate, but don't have the medicine kill the patient. That's all. So that's my time. Thank you very
much. Next is our friend from Penfield.
I planned and wrote like 5 different versions of my 5-minute speech, and then I listened to everybody, and that all went out the window, so I'm going. But first, I want to just say for a minute that how really lucky we are to live in Webster and have all of these residents on both sides. Everybody who has come and voiced their concern for what Webster will turn into, and have really spent a lot of time investigating and looking into these applications and researching all of this. These people all care about what happens in this town, and I hope that the board, you know, appreciates the fact that so many people have come out to give their opinions on both sides, because I think it's really wonderful. The first time that I was up here to speak, I spoke about the fact that Climate Smart is really a product. It's a name. It's not really talking about the environment, although there are things in it, obviously, that relate to that. That Climate Smart is its own identity. And I wanted to give an example. I was so happy to hear that you said that Mary was going to go back and do additional research and look into a few more things, because I had gone back to watch the workshop presentation, as you had encouraged. I watched it probably 3 times now, in addition to a whole bunch of other stuff. And one of the things that I noticed in there is that presentation falls into the trap that they set, which is that you're going to read it, and logically you're going to think, I know what the word climate means, I know what the word smart means, I know what they're talking about. And you read the sentences that they write with your own interpretation of what you think that is. And I took a picture from the presentation for myself, so I'm just going to bring it up because I didn't memorize it. But it's one of the slides that was given in the workshop where you're talking about what does the pledge say. And the very first item, I believe it comes from the resolution, I think that's what she was referring to, was it says, number 1, build a climate smart community. And her answer is logical if you were reading it as if it were a sentence. She talks about transitioning to LED lighting, managing the treatment for the stormwater, prioritizing flood resilience. That is a very logical response to the words that were on the page. When you go out and you look at the details of what the requirements of that particular item are, it doesn't have anything to do with the things that she wrote on the page. They're talking about who the people are that will make up the task force, who the people are that will be in charge of the thing. They are not talking about you creating a good Webster. They're talking about the people that you are going to assign to be the cheerleaders and the advocates and the researchers and whoever else they have to do for this project that are in it. But it's that kind of wordplay that they do, that if you're not really reading this with a fine-tooth comb, you're going to miss it. So I wanted to call that out, and I wanted to say thank you, and I just wanted that to be something that, a word to the wise as you're going through and preparing for the next workshop or that additional detail, that you're paying very close attention to what's in those things. Michelle, I believe, was actually reading from one of the sections that's in the application, which everything that's in the resolution is, it's ultimately going to lead to what's in the application. And she was reading about the section where it talks about the land use. That was the second topic that I talked about when I was here. I brought up the anti-rent movement, and I got kind of cut short, so people probably didn't necessarily catch the connection between the anti-rent movement and how it related to climate smart. But at the end of the day, the contracts that were signed by the people in the anti-rent movement were signed at the beginning, in the 1600s. Those, whatever benefits came from them getting the land and being able to set up their farms there, they got the benefit of those things, but the contracts were signed in perpetuity. So multiple generations later, when there were problems and financial systems were crashing and those sort of things, and it wasn't even the original patroon, it was several generations later for him, they needed the money, they wanted to collect the money. The generations that were forced to pay on it didn't even know the contract had been signed. They didn't give their consent for that to happen. When you get into this climate smart package down the road, if we're agreeing to a resolution as it goes down to the road, we're going to see benefits in the short term because there's grant money, and more grant money. There's a lot of money that's tied to these things, and it doesn't stop with what's listed here because they make this climate smart a requirement for many other government programs. But it's the pickle that unfortunately you guys signed up for, because you're going to be put in a really hard position. It is going to get very hard to get grant money if we don't sign on for this. At the same time, we have needs and things that need to be done.
4:45.
Ooh, I got a whole 30 seconds on. I obviously am opposed to it. I think it's something that you guys really have to think about, and I'm glad that the attorney is here tonight, because as you're going through the application and there are shalls, attorneys know what that means. When it says you shall do something, that's not an option. And I want you to read it with a fine-tooth comb, because they're telling you what they're going to do with it. It's not hidden. So, thank you.
Thank you.